Simple, and I just wanted to invite my dearest friend, Austin. This guy we've had a great story. We've come together through coincidence almost, and at that point, then became great friends. But he has a really good and a really trying chase this year, and a story that can help us all and then help us overcome just anything that, like, if we're trialing with something, just to persevere and push through it. So, with all that aside, I want to introduce Austin. Austin, thank you for joining me, and then welcome.
Hey man, Andrew, happy and excited to get to be, I think, maybe one of the first official Hunt and Simple guests. I'm not
Yes.
sure if there's others already, but obviously been following along with the Hunt and Simple journey and love everything you're doing. And my story, there's nothing too spectacular about it, but it's been a fun season, everything kind of came together, whether it be due to anything I did specifically or maybe just pure luck. You can determine for yourself, but well, happy to chat and excited to share with you.
No, yeah, no. All stories. I almost enjoy these as like campfire banters.
Yeah.
Where it's
Yeah.
and to go back to, yes, you are the first guest, so I'm honored to have you.
Boy, that's good. There's no expectations then, right?
I don't have high ones for myself, so it's okay when it comes into the woods.
Yeah, good, man. Well, awesome. Yeah, well, excited to chat.
Okay. So how did this journey, or how did this season start for you? What were your goals, or what were you just driving to accomplish for this season?
Yeah, so I think I'll take it a little bit further back than just this season to kind of get to where I'm at as a hunter right now, and kind of the evolution of that. So I think I counted, and this is my 17th season hunting. I started hunting when I was around 19, and that was purely gun week. Gun week was hunting. The first time I ever hunted was just, I went out and I bought the Mossberg 500 deer package for $250 from Dick's Sporting Goods, and we had some property, which is still the property we hunt to this day as a family. But that's kind of how my entry into the hunting world, and from there, it was 5 years of just, didn't even know what we were doing, just trying to stay warm in that cold week of November every year after Thanksgiving in Ohio. And, it took me probably 3 or 4 years to get my first deer, and then kind of got in a cadence of gun week every year would pop a doe. And we're just talking like any brown is down, that's that unfortunately had been my mentality for quite a while. So got into bow hunting probably after 5 years of just the 1 week of gun hunting, and I'd always, been interested in archery, and finally pulled the trigger on just an old bow off Craigslist. And this is, early 20s at this point, and still kind of maintained the same hunting mentality, like, get out a couple weekends during bow every year. Not a lot going on. I missed way more deer with my bow than I would have harvested, only because of, I learned eventually that you should probably practice a bit, with a compound bow.
Sometimes it helps.
Yeah, than just, assuming that because you can shoot a target, a couple times before you sit in the stand, like it's going to make a difference. But so it was, hunting had always been, I was getting more excited about hunting, but didn't really get really passionate, I would say, about hunting up until probably the last 5 years or so. And so going back to probably 4 years is when I decided, I'm actually going to try to like kill a buck. And up until 4 years ago, I'd only ever really killed one buck, and it happened to be with my bow, and that was pure luck. It just finally the first deer that I saw was a buck versus a doe, So
Absolutely.
so what happens when you want to kill a buck? You have to get a little more patient, a little more specific, and you have to not shoot the first doe you see every year, and maybe try to understand the buck behaviors and where they're at and how they're moving. So I'm still fairly new when it comes to those sorts of tactics and actually taking your hunting seriously and understanding your environment versus kind of the standard get up in the stand and just kind of, pray, which I still do plenty of that too, by the way. But
don't we all, right?
so going into this season, last year, my goal was just to kill a buck, and I was successful in that. And it took quite a few weekends of serious hunting and patience and passing on deer. And it was literally November 3rd last year. and it was obviously right before Thanksgiving / gun week, and was able to kill like an okay buck. I mean, a buck I was certainly excited about.
I remember that one.
Yeah, you were the first person I texted. So
Yeah, when you took that, I got the text. I was like, yes, and then all of a sudden, I even felt some pressure. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And like I had to talk myself back off the pressure ledge of like, stick to your game plan. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved seeing that picture when it came through.
Yeah, no, I was obviously super pumped because I had finally felt like I'd come to the realized the efforts of, not just trying to kill a deer, but a buck at that. So this year, spent and I've been spending significant time off season the last couple years, not just trying to understand our property and deer movement, but also practicing with the bow. And fortunately, I think I haven't missed a deer for the last 5 years with my bow, when it used to be a real prayer of like, please let this arrow hit this deer, which isn't the most ethical way to hunt either, right? If you're not that zeroed in.
Not always, but it's at least you acknowledge that. I mean, that's part of the growing experience anyway. So you acknowledge that what you wanted to get better at and how you wanted to harvest your deer, and so that's I think one of the first steps. I mean, you took that seriously, and it's been really cool. Since we've grown as friends, and then also in that friendship we have our let's go shoot race gun pistols or shotguns here and there. But then the archery was probably a little more when we first met on me. That was kind of like my avenue of things. And then for someone who's grown up doing it and done it for many years, all of a sudden like that itch, that bug like caught you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then to see that progression, it's been really cool to see the growth that has like come from that, and just the patience that has come with that. And it's very trying, but it's been really cool to see that progression for you.
Yeah, well, and to give those that are watching or listening some of that backstory too, I can actually pinpoint the moment you said, hey, why don't you take a 60-yard shot with your bow just for fun? We were just having a good time, and I had never shot past 40. And like the second I like released that arrow and it hit the target, I was like, I'm freaking addicted. And like the next second I had a Matthews VXR, which had just come out, and was like $2,000 into a new bow setup, like in minutes. And ever since then though, I've been hooked on archery. So
yeah, that is funny. I actually did not put that 2 and 2 together on that. I didn't know that was the moment for you.
And you were like hitting the target every time, and I lost like 6 arrows in a row, and I'm like, I'm not letting this happen anymore. I'm at least gonna get a sight that I could like try to like get zeroed in on. So the archery passion has been lit for 3 years now, I guess 3 seasons for sure. So going into this season, to kind of get to the actual question, man, it was basically starting August. The kind of fire had just been lit, and I just couldn't wait. My wife also happened to deliver our second child September 29th of this year. Thanks. And which has been, awesome. But for anybody who's like a really serious hunter out there, try to time it a little bit better if you're a whitetail hunter in the Midwest. And so it's weird because I actually put like all this pressure on myself this year to hunt, like, because I just wanted it so bad. And it really wasn't healthy, honestly, for like my wife and like for me to like have this pressure on her, because I was trying to hunt prior to having the baby, which wasn't really good for her, like, and me, and so I didn't. And then we had the baby, and went through some stuff with the baby, which all worked out fine, but it just caused this massive delay. So I had this even bigger like buildup of like, when am I actually gonna get to hunt? And like, what are my expectations at this point? Because I like usually, you get out as much as you can and you spend as much time in the tree as you can. And I'd also, over the last year, adopted hunting from the saddle. So that's still fairly new to me, but I had been going out and just practicing in the saddle, just waiting for my chance to like actually hunt this year. So all that said, kind of came in when I finally got to start hunting, which I don't know that I didn't get out until probably like mid to late, it was probably late October before I finally got out.
Which in reality, It's perfectly fine. It was probably the first or the second cold snap for you, so the timing couldn't have worked out better.
Yeah, right.
Hindsight.
Right. Yeah. Other than like for me, it was like I want to get more time in the saddle for the sake of comfort and confidence because that's a whole new facet for me. And I only hunted a few times out of it last year, so it's wanting to get comfortable in that and on top of like wanting to kill a decent buck. And my goal this year, so expectations this year were I was going to kill a buck bigger than my buck last year. My buck last year was a typical 8-point, probably like 2.5 years old, maybe 3.5, but somebody who knows more about deer could determine that. But and so I wasn't going to shoot a buck unless it was bigger than that buck. So first couple times I got out of the 4 total times I hunted this year, no action. Not don't even know that I saw anything. I had one possum, which was pretty exciting up until the moment I realized it was a freaking possum.
Just let it fly.
Well, I usually would, but I was just like, I had so little time to hunt. I was trying to be really cautious. And so bow season this year, well, I would say it was a bust up until it was my last evening bow hunting leading up to gun week in Ohio. And it was like sunset was upon me and I had a doe and I was like, well, I'm going to hang here for a bit. And this doe just wouldn't leave. So I took the doe. And I think that was the weekend before Thanksgiving / before gun week. So knowing that I was going to be coming back and spending a real week, which for us, I bring the wife out to our cabin and the babies and the kids, and my parents are also there, so my mom can provide support there.
I remember that. When we first met, that was a very, I don't want to say I was actually, yes, I was thrown off to hear that. And then as I started thinking through that and I was like, man, that's actually an extremely cool dynamic. It is always fun to get away and like with the guys and go to your gun week. But to have a place that like, you guys have at that property where it ends up becoming like just a family event, that's actually it's almost the new modern gun week. And there's a lot of people who are having daughters, and it's like you can't just have gun week be the guy's time.
Yeah.
Then the female doesn't get the one chance a year, especially in Ohio almost, like
right.
the 1 week to have that opportunity. So it's a very cool dynamic you guys have there with that style of gun week, and it's pretty cool to hear that.
Yeah, and we used to, like when I first got into it, those first 5, 6, 7 years it was the guys' time, and we had a much smaller, rougher cabin at that point in time, and that was a pretty awesome time. And like I remember the first thing one of the older guys said to me, because I was a younger guy, was like, when you get married, there's one thing you tell your wife: gun week is sacred, and that hunting is a sacred time for the men. And so I was like, all right, I'll try to remember that for when I get married. Yeah. But
scrap it.
At some point, my mom was just like, I'm coming. And so she started showing up, and then at that point, I've been married for 10 years now, and it just was like, well, I should bring my wife if my mom's going to be there, and it evolved to what it is today. And now it's really it's family time, really. So
yeah, it is, especially with all of our busy schedules, to almost have that week where you get to be with family, and then all of a sudden your passion is completely understood and involved in that same week. That's actually very, very rare and very almost jealous worthy.
Yeah.
To have that type of situation.
Well, and the cool thing for me with it too is like at this point my hunting passion lies way more with bow and archery than it lies with gun. So at this point, gun is almost like the consolation week of like, we're going to hang out and have a good time. I might not go out quite as early, and I might not stay out quite as long. Unless it's a desperation time. And this year it kind of was a desperation time.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this year led you into gun week.
Yeah. So the weekend before gun, took a doe. It was the probably best shot I've ever taken. The deer made it, didn't go 20 type deal. And so that was fun and good prep for kind of going into gun week. And I really didn't go into gun week with big expectations. But since I had taken a doe, I wasn't going to shoot a deer unless it was a buck, and I wasn't going to shoot a buck unless it was bigger than last year. Okay. So
that helped narrow it down and gave you some confidence for that.
Yep, and I was committed to that to where, like, I had at least one deer in the freezer, so I was, good for that. And anyway, so gun week was, I've killed my buck on Tuesday evening, so that was my fourth sit, and I don't know how you typically will hunt gun week, but I'm out sunrise to whenever I'm cold, kind of a deal, which is 9:30 to 11 based on the temperature that day. You're in for lunch, hang out, and then given the fact that we're probably sunsetting around 4:55 or 5 o'clock, it's back out for me around 2 o'clock probably. So, and gun week for us too is pretty lazy. Like I'll ride my four-wheeler almost all the way to the stand.
That is like, there is one thing about having like the private land that I get jealous over very often with that situation.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'm based on what happened this year, I might just start riding the four-wheeler all over the place because this buck, I mean, I'm seeing quite a few deer, even though I'm not parking literally next to the stand, but even 60 yards away, and you're chomping your way up to the stand anyways, but. And for gun week, I wasn't hunting out of the saddle. Like I'm still trying to figure out my ideal saddle gun setup, which is in my head. Yeah.
I've never done it, so yeah, I have no information That's weird to me. That's very foreign.
Well, I'm trying to use it as an excuse to maybe like buy like a little carbine, lever action, just for I need a smaller, something a little more mobile.
We need to deep dive into this now, just so we can get you the carbine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I could get more into the the buck bedding areas, with the saddle type deal. But had quite a bit of activity Monday morning, evening, and Tuesday morning in a couple different locations in our property. And just for some context, we've got 200 acres of private land that we have the privilege to get to hunt, and I will say we've tapped into less than half of that realistically. So a lot of opportunity over the coming years to really better understand that property and the land and create better access and all that. So that's maybe a whole other topic of conversation.
Oh, that's a summer scouting in-depth, like less boots on the ground.
Yeah, we'll go out with some cameras and some microphones and just do a walk and talk and that could be a pretty cool deal. So anyways, okay, so I guess we'll go back to Monday evening of gun. And because I did actually have a situation that I screwed up pretty bad, and I was, how you feel when you screw up.
It's devastating.
Yeah,
it hurts.
I was hunting a spot that I've killed a few doe in, and I'm confident that I'm gonna get a big buck there someday. And this is out of a stand, and it's amazing when you get more serious about trying to kill a buck because you see a lot more bucks because you're not shooting the does, and it wasn't really rut time, but I mean, bucks are still coming in after does, and
yeah, I mean, there's people who always term it like the second rut, or is it just rut extended? And I think a lot of it is just like, I don't necessarily know if there's a second rut, but I definitely think the rut can extend, weather permitting, and just whatever happens in nature can sometimes lengthen and postpone some of these. So yeah, there definitely could be some movement.
Yeah, and so I'm hanging out, and two doe come cruising right in, and I'm just having a great time like watching, because usually my heart starts racing right away because like I'm gonna shoot one of these deer. So the doe are in, I'm totally chill, enjoying watching them. And then I get a little cocky and I get my phone out. I'm like, I'm gonna start filming a little bit and just doing some selfies and got these doe. And I've actually I actually had my GoPro on, so I've got some footage of this you might throw into the video here where my phone is in my hand and I'm like looking at pictures and like taking pictures of these deer, and then you can see in the corner of the video, this buck starts cruising in. And so instantly I freeze, right? I'm like, oh God.
Then your heart starts racing.
Yeah, and I'm like, what am I doing? Why is my phone out? Why am I not ready?
Focus.
Yeah. So I in the video, I'll send it to you. I slowly put the phone away, and the first buck that walks in, not a shooter for me. The buck right behind him though, 100% I'm shooting this deer. I am so pumped. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is it. Like I'm just so excited because I was being specific with not shooting a deer unless it was bigger than last year. And this guy was barely bigger than last year, by the way. This buck was like, he might score like 3 inches more than last year's buck. So yeah, but he was bigger, I promise. And And so even in the video, I get to where like, okay, I've got my shotgun at this point, and I'm just holding it here, and he's out of the frame because my other GoPro wasn't working, and I'm just sitting there quiet. You can tell that that's when he's like staring at me. I'm just sitting there like this, not breathing, can't even like, and I'm just waiting for him to just chill out and keep going because I'm like getting ready to shoot this guy, and who knows what happened. He was just spooked. All three deer before, I didn't do any. I was more quiet with this guy than these other three deer. All other three deer hanging, no big deal. And he's just spooked. And there's a reason he's bigger than them, right? And then he jumps back. And then I freak. I'm like doing the old, whatever. And he just bolts. And I'm like, it's it. That was my chance. That was my one chance this year, right? Because it was.
Sometimes that's where you feel.
Super disappointing. I felt like I just felt like that was probably my chance for the whole season. And it's not that hard at our property to find like a 1.5 or 2.5 year old deer, but like to find anybody older than that, just because we're not that, we just historically haven't been that good, I guess. So fast forward to the following morning, good hunt. I can't recall specifically what happened, but it was I think I saw a deer every time I sat for gun week, but nothing shooting. I was going to shoot, and the following evening, which is when things get spicy, some things started happening. So it warmed.
It wasn't because you ate lunch.
It wasn't the lunch, but I'm sure I had something fantastic because I was not watching my figure in that moment. So,
side note, you are an excellent smoker, griller, whatever there needs. I don't know if there was a true name to that, but it's if anyone ever has a chance to eat a rib that Mr. Austin here has made, it's some of the best ribs you have.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do have a cooking problem that is a result of my eating problem, but I love to cook and make food, and I'm passionate about cooking venison too. I love venison. I have gotten to a point where when I first started, harvesting deer and then eating them, I was like, I wasn't that excited to eat it. But getting to a point to where you can cook venison in a way that is like appealing, I believe venison is one of the most beautiful meats in the freaking world and is so good. You just have to cook it the right way, and that's a whole another episode too for us.
Yeah. We have many rabbit holes we can deep dive in. So this is beautiful.
Yeah, and just to tease the crowd a little bit, this is a Sunday afternoon that we're having this conversation, and I had some venison tenderloins that I had pulled out that I intended to cook for dinner last night, and I didn't. So I was like, hey, Micah, my wife, I said, I'm just gonna cook these for lunch. And so for lunch, I did some sautéed mushrooms with a little bit of onions and garlic and a little bit of pesto with a bit of a vodka sauce in there as the base.
Okay.
And then set that aside, got the tenderloins, just ripped them on a hot pan.
I was going to say some quick sear.
Oh yeah, threw the rest of that back in and let them cook for a few minutes. Some roasted cauliflower on the side. And it was literally like, gourmet dinner, but for lunch, and it was phenomenal. So,
now I'm hungry.
Yeah.
To backtrack your tease, I was getting everything set up for this. I put a grilled cheese just on the oven real quick. Forgot about it. Smoked out the second floor, and then now the grilled cheese is sitting in the front yard because it's black. And Rachel had just come home right before we got ready to start, and she's like, why is there grilled cheese in the front yard? I was like, flip it over, it's burnt, it's destroyed.
Yeah, so, that's hilarious.
At least you achieved yours. I mean, I didn't even get that. I ended up having a couple chips. So
yeah, well,
that's on me.
Yeah. There's I'm sure there's more grilled cheese to be had, once we get through this. And things got spicy.
Yes.
So it was a rather warm afternoon. I have become a Sitka fanboy without a doubt. So there was no need for the Fanatic setup, which I was excited to wear, but it was pretty warm. So I was wearing it doesn't matter what I was wearing. I just remember it was warm. Still pure,
comfortable.
a full Sitka get up, and I was as comfortable as I've ever been in a 50-degree hunting afternoon, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And without the Sitka, I would have been very uncomfortable, I'm sure. But was hanging out, and it was probably around 3:30 in the afternoon.
Okay.
And we're hunting, and I've got some of this on video as well. So I'm hunting
Perfect.
kind of our premium deer killing zone. We call it the lower pasture. I've killed the vast majority of my deer in this pasture. And you'll see in the video, we've got a permanent wooden enclosed stand in that area. And that's, if it's frigid out, you know, that's where you really want to go with your old buddy heater and everything. You don't even have to wear camo. You just get up there and blast whatever comes by. But I was out in the stand because, again, it was a nice day. and the view of the pasture it's wide open, but it's covered in woods on all four sides. So there's no road pass through or anything. So the deer love this place. And at the furthest end of the pasture is about 90 yards. So the furthest shot you take, if there's a deer down there, is 90 yards. And so about 3:30, a doe comes up out of the end of the lower pasture, so about 90 yards away. It's one of those things where I'm just kind of doing my thing, and I look up, I'm like, oh, there's a deer out there. Okay, let's watch this.
Were you on your phone again?
I was probably taking selfies. I do a lot of, you really got to get that angle, and I was trying to figure out how am I going to become an influencer, so. So I was taking. I'll. You can throw one of my selfies up too. I've got a couple of those.
The selfie before the deer.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet actually. Not really, but so look, I noticed this doe. So I turn on my camera. I always have GoPros set up, and I actually have a pretty nice setup for my saddle. I love the camera stuff, so I always try to get my deer harvesting on camera. So I just I'll throw on the GoPro and get it rolling. So I get it rolling, and this doe just hangs for 15, 20 minutes. So I'm just kind of enjoying myself, and
This is on the far side of the pasture.
Yeah. So this doe's hanging between probably 90 and 75 and 90 yards from me. And so I'm kind of just enjoying watching this doe. I do get my phone out again because I'm a fool, and I'm taking pictures with my phone while my GoPro is rolling. And then magic starts to happen. 2 bucks come up. And here's what's cool. I try to pay more attention to this type of stuff. And in the past, I wouldn't have. But I've noticed that this doe started looking back, and this was probably 3 or 4 minutes before these guys came out of the woods. So as this doe's looking back, I'm like, there might be something going on here. I'm going to put my phone away just in case. All right. So what was cool is these two bucks, they'd come up. And the first one was a young, little 6-pointer dude, probably a year and a half old. And he wandered in first. And then right behind him was my buck. And instantly I knew the first of all, heart rate obviously just starts exploding. And I knew instantly this is the biggest deer that I will ever have an opportunity at. I mean, and the cool thing is way bigger than last night's deer. So last night I was going to take a shot at this deer, right? And, I was so devastated. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, thank you. You were just playing with me last night. Cause this guy, if I had shot that deer last night and then I was hunting, tonight and this guy shows up, I would have just been furious.
Let me ask you a quick question. Yeah. You said your heart rate was racing. What did you do to pull your heart rate back down? What did you do to get centered again? Yeah, well, the interesting thing about this particular situation is I have gotten to a point where I'm able to tell myself just to slow down. So it's really you have to tell yourself slow down and calm down, because my natural instinct is to move fast or get ready to go. And this guy wasn't in a position for me to shoot him right now, so there was nothing for me to do yet. And so, a younger, maybe less mature me, and I'm not saying I'm that mature, but would have been a little faster to get ready, a little faster to get situated, just to be ready to go. And in this instance, he was facing me. He was about 80, 85 yards, kind of looking at me directly. And so I knew, whatever happens here, unless he gets spooked, I've got a little bit of time. So for me, it's really just a moment of
take it easy. This is amazing, like freaking out, but just cool off. Kind of address my surroundings and make sure like I'm in a good spot to eventually get to where I need to be, so that this gun is against my shoulder and I'm ready to go. But that's kind of my process.
Okay. Just but mainly, so I take from that like you were just slow down, like almost pause. Like yes, it's racing, but like you had the cognitive thought of like, okay, freeze, pause for a second. Let's think this through. Let's make some pretty smart decisions moving from here forward. Okay,
Yep.
That makes sense. So basically pausing.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because like the climax of the whole thing, there isn't that much between now and then the 15 minutes that pass. But here's what's crazy about the situation is this deer was facing me with head down, grazing, whatever, but not really even moving, just head down, and then he'd pop up every once in a while, head down, pop up every once in a while, and so it gave me enough time to really let my heart rate cool and gradually get in the position I needed to be in, which when you're sitting in a tree stand, I'm just talking about shifting my weight to where the gun is in my hands as opposed to sitting on my lap, But
that can make a noise. That can make a squeak, a creak, anything.
100%. I mean, I'm working with a 15-year-old, 18-year-old Mossberg 500 that rattles when I pick it up. So, I definitely got to be cautious with how I touch that gun. So from the time that he entered my life to the time that I pulled that trigger was probably 15, 16 minutes. And as you know, that's an eternity.
It is. That's forever.
In deer hunting world. So I was basically in a position where I'm just waiting for him to just freaking turn sideways. Okay. It's like, please.
That one step. You need like a 1-2 step.
Yeah, and even when I watched the video footage back, I'm like, hey, well, was he really fully broadside when I took that shot? But he was getting closer. And I've got it all on video. I think I might have mentioned that. But I had been in a position where I was just very calmly, patiently waiting. And fortunately, I don't know that he really ever detected me. I mean, he'd pop up and kind of look in my direction, but fortunately, there was no wind. And the wind checker, you throw it up in the air and it just kind of settles. So I'm thinking, like, hopefully. And by the way, I hadn't done anything to protect my scent whatsoever. I guarantee it smelled like hot dogs and chili or something. But
whatever lunch was.
Yeah, it's like I'm not even like spraying my clothes down at this point. I'm just wearing whatever. But so, anyways, we get to this moment. Eternity has passed. And he does finally take a turn. And the coolest thing, again, with kind of maturing over the years in how I operate, I was getting ready to pull the trigger, thinking this is the moment. And I had this like second where I'm like, slow down. Once again, that thought, like, slow down.
So that thought came,
And I actually was about to pull the trigger. I was about to anticipate the shot. I was probably about to jolt. And this is 80 yards, and it's really not that far, but it's far enough to where you can make a mistake.
Easily.
And I had it in my head that I'm gonna I'm gonna reset. So finger goes off the trigger, and this is probably over the span of 3 seconds, right? Not that much time passes from where I have this moment, and then I choose to reset, and then I make like the most calm trigger pull shot that I feel like I've ever made. And I only say that because of where the shot hit. If I had missed, I wouldn't be telling you how graceful I was with pulling this trigger.
It would have been like a shake.
Yeah.
It would have been the crisp.
I would have some really severe excuses for you. Please excuse the background noise if you hear my daughter screaming a little bit. But nap time has ended. So, anyways, this was a really cool thing. I pulled the trigger, he jumped up, and it was probably 7 to 10 yards. He went back and was down. I mean, and he didn't make another move. I don't know that I've ever shot a deer that I was able to watch that didn't, move quite a bit, right? Or something.
Yeah.
And the way our lower pasture is set, and you'll see this in the video footage, is our kind of permanent tree stand is right in front of me, and this deer was to my right. And so he fell back behind the permanent structure. So on my line of sight, I couldn't see him, but I could see his antlers. And so it took...
That's
yeah,
cool.
It took a few peeks out of the binoculars just to make sure, those are antlers, right? Yeah. And but there wasn't another movement, period. So it was just a really awesome, obviously, experience. I I took some time. The doe that was there actually stayed there after I pulled the trigger. I've never personally shot a deer, and then the other deer that were there like hung out.
Yeah.
But this doe, I almost couldn't get her to leave. I'm like, get out of here, like.
Just
So
a warning shot over the bow.
yeah, it's like, please leave. Like, let me enjoy this moment in peace without without you.
Yeah.
Eventually, she trotted off, and I had enough time to kind of calm down and get just be really grateful for the moment. But I actually chose not to go straight to the deer. And usually, once you get out of your saddle or stand or whatever you shoot your deer in,
you're trying to rush over.
yeah, and you got to go find him most of the time. But I knew exactly where he was, and so I actually went back up to our cabin and got my wife. I was so pumped, and brought her back down with me. And so her and I actually saw him together for the first time, which was pretty cool. She puts up with a lot of my antics and whatnot, so I thought it'd be cool for us to,
Yes, they support us in this habit. Of
ours. It's like, I don't know why you're the way you are, but I'm here for you. So like, that's true love right there.
It is, 100%. Yeah, our hobby that takes us away from them. Yeah, exactly. That they support us.
Yeah, so that was a really cool experience. And got him back up to the cabin where my daughter happened to be with my mom, and my dad was actually out still hunting himself at that time. But my daughter, like, I think I've got some footage of her saying like, "That's a cool deer, Daddy," or "Great deer, Daddy," and just to have a 2.5-year-old say that means everything. They're just so cool.
Yeah, that's like heartwarming. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was. That's pretty much it. It was. For all of the exciting things that happened in the deer hunting woods, this one was exciting in the sense that like I had a lot of time to just hope that nothing happens, because he's in my line of sight, in my view. And since it is gun week, it was gun time. It was a pretty simple shot. Fortunate enough for it to have gone right through the right spot for him to kind of fall back, and he was dead. And so I'm pleased with that. I've had some bad shots in the past where that the deer is having some trouble, and that's like, there's no worse experience or feeling with hunting.
That hurts. That just like, that hurts, and no one wishes that upon anybody, like any of the deer. But I think is what you've done to prevent that is, and you can never avoid it completely, but your progression through the years and how you've practiced and actually put in more of an effort than just saying, well, let's go hunting. Like, just seeing your growth and your maturity in the sport and in this hobby, like, that's all of that boils down to when you took that shot this time. It was done. It was over with. It was as 100% humane as you can make it.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it happened to be like 4 p.m. give or take when it happened. So it's like, usually when you like kill your dream deer, it's like, it's pitch black out by the time you get the deer. So literally it was daylight for me to like get to have some photos taken, get them up to the cabin, so everything was just, it worked out really well, given the fact that I'm dealing with an 8-week-old baby at that time, and just like praying for just the opportunity to hunt, let alone get the deer of like my life so far. So super grateful, man. Like, it's just such a cool feeling especially to get to a point where you have a goal, a specific goal. And my goal wasn't to shoot the biggest deer in the world. It was just to shoot a deer that was bigger than last year. And because of that, I allowed so many deer to walk, not just does, but like I let bucks go that I would have been tempted by for sure, last year. And it's only because I don't have 30 racks on my wall, right? I've got like 2. And so, but to have that goal and then to actually get to fruition with that goal, which I didn't expect it to happen. It was just such a humbling, cool experience, and something that obviously I'll be excited about for a long, long time.
No, that culmination of growth and everything did lead you to this. And I think one super cool thing is that you're there with your family. Not everyone gets that, especially during gun week, that you got to go back to the cabin, get your wife, go back, and then to see your baby, like, and her making the comment of like, that's an awesome deer, Daddy, like, and then having your parents there. I mean, you got 3 generations at one deer camp, especially a gun week deer camp. It's very rare.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. And then to see them grow up, that once a year kind of opportunity, it'll be fun. It'll be it'll be cool to see in further and continuing years. So I'm excited to see be a part of that and see it as well.
Yeah, well, if things go well, my daughter can be your first young guest on the show, but that might, that'll be a decade from now when Hunt Simple's, full-time gig for you. So.
Oh no, this is we all have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
This is just a hobby that we enjoy, and I think that's one thing to remember is this is a hobby. We're not out there. I mean, full-time hunters, professional hunters. We work, and then if it ever starts to not get fun as a hobby and enjoying it, and yes, you want to achieve things and reach your goals, but if it ever gets to that point, then you're doing something wrong. I mean, this is supposed to be our gateway to relaxation a little bit. Obviously, we want to achieve certain things, but it should always be fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing. And I think seeing how you kind of broke it down, you slowed down, you were patient. I think that's one thing with like Hunt Simple that I'm trying to push a little bit is just keeping it simple. I mean, we don't all have the opportunity of, having the plots, and having a land is rare sometimes for a lot of people, but having those cultivated food plots, feeders everywhere, cameras everywhere. I mean, we have jobs, so we don't get to go sit out and like we're going to take this. We have to pick our moments to strike, and you did that this year, and you paid attention, and you were watching the trail cam data, paying attention to weather. And knowing what stand to go to depending on certain weather conditions. And look, just the knowledge you've started to learn, you're implementing that knowledge, keeping it simple, and then just success.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's exciting.
It really my success this year is extremely simple because it was a very simple objective and a simple plan that I felt was reasonable too. I thought it wasn't some pie in the sky dream of, I see these guys kill these monsters, and all of a sudden I think, even though I've never seen one, I'm going to go shoot one myself on land I've been playing on for the last 18 years, And but it was a realistic goal that allowed me to stay focused, and it was a simple. There was nothing magical that I did other than implement that plan. And it was within my.
It was patient.
Exactly, and it was within my realm of possibility. There's a lot of other hunters out there.
It was realistic.
Yeah, realistic. And I'm no special hunter, and there's guys out there that could probably set much higher goals and achieve them in my circumstances because they've got that ability or skill set. But for my circumstances, it was a very simple plan that worked out. And so, just to kind of reiterate your mission, I used to think I would need to know everything to be able to kill a deer like this, but it's a lot of luck, I think. But some simple things come into play that allow you to kind of get a little bit better every year. So
it's like, the deer win 99% of the time, but it's like you implement that plan and you make a couple correct decisions, and it can lead you down the right path. So that's pretty cool. Well, Austin, I really appreciate your time. I thank you for joining. It's super exciting to see how the culmination of a couple of years here led you to this, and then you even outdid last year, which was what you set out to do. So that's awesome. I'm super pumped to be a part of it, and couldn't be happier for you. So thanks, man. Until next time, guys, hunt simple and have a good one.